Hello everyone, my name is Dewey and welcome back to the Exile Survival Guide. I hope you're having a good day. In today's episode, we're going to dive into one of the most important aspects of Path of Exile 2, understanding your gear and how to optimize it for the early game. We'll cover item rarity, gear stats, flask mechanics, and then put it all into practice as we explore Clearfell and take on Beira. In the last episode, we created our character, picked up Spark as our first skill and made it into the Clearfell encampment. Now it's time to make sure we're properly equipped before venturing further into Ray class, so let's get started. Now, first things first, let's talk about item rarity, because understanding this system is absolutely crucial to our success in Path of Exile 2. So if we open up the shop at Renly here, we'll see that some of the items will have these blue tinted borders around them, and the item text will also be a blue purple-ish hue. As compared to some of the other items which does not have these blue text. So as an example, we'll take the twig ciclet here, and I'm going to pin that by holding Alt and clicking the pin button, and then I'm going to pin this other items here as well. We'll close the shop for now. So at the very basic, on the left here we have a normal, or often called a white or gray item. These are the most basic items that you'll find with no special modifiers at all. Think of these as your blank canvas. And then on the right here we have a magic item. These appears to be in blue, and magic items can have up to 2 different modifiers, one prefix and one suffix, as you can see here. These are all your early game workhorses, if you will, and I currently don't have any on me at the moment, but eventually you'll also find rare items as well, and I think I'll put an image of that up onto the screen when I edit this video. But rare items can show up in gold or yellow, and they can have up to 6 different modifiers in total, so 3 prefix and 3 suffixes. These are what you'll be hunting for as we progress into the later stages of the game. There is another type of item rarity, which is unique item. These have a distinctive brownish orange color. They're unique because they're special. They have a specific prefix or suffix that is fixed to that unique item. Unique modifiers that you cannot find anywhere else in the game. However, this is important. Unique items often come with a significant trade-off. So they might give you an amazing offense bonus, but terrible defenses, or vice versa. You'll need to find clever ways to work around these limitations when we use them. So why does all of this stuff matter? Well, the rarity determines how powerful an item can potentially be, right? More modifiers means more stats, and more stats means a stronger character. So in the early game, even a good magic item with 2 solid modifiers can carry you pretty far, but as we progress, we'll want to transition into rare items with multiple useful stats. So as for the early part of the game, now that we understand rarity, let's talk about what stats we actually want for our gear. This is where a lot of new players get overwhelmed, but I'm going to break it down simply. So for defensive gear, let's go back to Renly's shop here. I'm going to type in here, or you can also hit Control F as well in order to search for something. And I'm going to look for life. This is one of the 2 stats that we should prioritize above everything else in the early game, which is maximum life. So you can see here we have a tattered robe of the seal with plus 16 to maximum life and 8% to cold resistance. So this is actually a perfect item. Unfortunately, we don't have any gold that we could buy this year, but it gives us maximum life and 1 type of elemental resistance, right? So simple as that. You know, more life means more hits you can take. So look for anything that has a plus X number to maximum life. This is what we're looking for. And you'll see when you're holding Alt, you'll also see a T13 or T8 here. This is the tier of the stat that the item has. So in Path of Exile 2, the lower the number of the tier, the better it is. So for example, here we have a T13 to maximum life. But if you find another item that has a T12 or 10, that is actually better than a T13 or tier 13, if you will. Same with the cold resistance here. So we will always know that we're looking for tier 1, 2, 3, 4. The higher, or I guess the lower the tier number, the better the stat will be, right? That's what we're looking for. So that's defensively. We want, again, maximum life and a elemental resistance of some sort. Now, you'll also notice that in the different armor types, we also have an implicit number of defensive here. It could be armor or energy shield, or in this case, evasion rating, or a hybrid of armor and evasion rating, or a hybrid of evasion rating and energy shield. Let me briefly explain what each of them do. Armor reduces the physical damage that you take from a hit, right? So there is a physical damage reduction formula. I won't go too deep into, but just general knowledge that armor reduces or is more effective against smaller hits. So even though we are a spellcasting sorceress, we might want to take armor at the beginning stages of the game, because there's a lot of smaller monsters who will do smaller physical damage hits. That's completely fine. So that's how armor works. Energy shield, as you can see here, I currently have 0, but let's say if I pick up this item and equip it on my character, I'll start having a shield regenerating. So energy shield provides a regenerating protective buffer above your life. And then finally we have evasion, right, which give you a chance to completely avoid being hit by attacks. And if ever you're interested in seeing what these stats are for your character, you can always hit C to see your character panel here, or your character sheet. You will be able to see the total life, your energy shield, how fast it recharges per second, the recharge delay. So this is how long it will take after the last instance of damage that hits your character before your energy shield starts to recharge. And as well as your armor, evasion, and block chances down here. Right, so all these numbers are estimates, of course. And then underneath that, you get to see your elemental resistances to the 4 types of damage or elemental damage. Chaos is technically not considered elemental damage, but we'll get into that later. These are more poison or purple chaos damage. So yeah. So anyway, with that being said, let's see if we can afford some of the gear here in town. I'm going to sell this because I don't need it at the moment, and this as well. So that's for defensive gear. Now what about offensive, right? So for casters like ourselves, mainly on our weapons and some jewelry, the stats that we want to focus on depends on the build type. So for spellcaster, like our Spark Sorceress Mage here, we are looking for plus number to spell skill gems, right? So for example, let me see if I could find something here that does that. I don't think I do. Yeah, so there's nothing here that gives me that, but oh yeah, there it is. We found one. All right, so here we have a +1 to level of all physical spell skill. So if my character were to use physical spell skills, this would be a really good wand to pick up here. Right, because unlike martial skills where a lot of their damage is gained through the implicit flat damage from the weapons, for spell users we don't have any flat damage coming from our weapons, right? So the only way for us to scale our damage is through the level of the spells itself. And so for that reason, anytime we see a +1 to level of all cold spell, lightning spell, fire spell, or just all spells in general, that is a really good stat to pick up. The other things is increased spell damage, and finally gain 14% of spell damage as extra cold, lightning, fire damage of some sort. Now, unfortunately, I do not use physical spell skills, so this is not very useful for me, and also I can't afford it. I'm too broke at this point. Womp womp. So for that reason, I won't be picking up this item here, but if you find in your shop, because it will be different from mine, anything that gives you lightning spells or cold spells, because we will be transitioning later, feel free to pick them up. And before we venture forward, I just realized that I completely forgot to explain how Flask work in Path of Exile 2. This is actually really important, so let's go over it really quickly. You'll notice you have Flask charges, so if you hover over any of your mana or life flask here, we'll see that there is a Flask charge that says consume 10 out of 60 charges on use, and currently we have 60 charges. So effectively, when this flask is full, we have 60 charges, and every time we press the flask button, we will consume 10 of those in order to recover 50 of our life over the next 3 seconds, right? So the question is, well, we only have one flask charge, you know, where do we get more charges? Or the game doesn't allow us to equip more than one of these charges, flasks at the same time, right? So in Path of Exile 2 and Path of Exile 1 as well, your flasks are a little bit magical. As we slay monsters and kill enemies in the game, the flask will automatically recovers based on the power of the enemies that we kills, right? So here's an example. If I start casting my spell here, you'll see my mana start to go down, and then I'm gonna hit 2 to recover my mana, and you'll see that we now currently has 50 charges on the lesser mana flask. If I go ahead and start killing a couple of things here, we should see the number of flask charges available to us increase. Let's just go ahead and kill some more. There we go. Now we have 52 charges. So it creates an interesting risk-reward type of gameplay where if you're running out of flask, you have to make a decision. Are you strong enough in order to continue pushing, to eventually kill more monsters and refill your charges, or should you just head back to town, or maybe, you know, try to find a checkpoint in order to activate and refill your flask? Okay, and before we continue further, I will also remember we have a uncut skill gem from episode 0 here for the first episode that we received from entering into town after killing the miller. So we're going to engrave our first skill gem. This is primarily how we get new skills in Path of Exile and how we upgrade our skills. Previously, in the first area of the game, we picked up Spark and it's already engraved for us. But now we can see all of the other different skills that we can potentially engrave and use in our build. And the first tab is always going to be the tab that's specific to your character class. So in this case here, we have Flame Wall, Ice Nova, and Frost Bomb. And Flask is currently grayed out because the game's telling us, hey, you already have a socketed skill gem of this type, right? If we're interested in exploring the skills available to the other weapon classes in the game, there's nothing stopping us from switching over to, let's say, the Occult here, which uses a Scepter, and engraving an unearth skill, so long as we have the requirements to use this skill. So at the moment, we'll take a look at, let's say, a mace, for example. As long as I have the correct weapon type and the correct amount of stats the skill requires, I will be able to use the skill no problem, right? So for now, we'll just focus on the elemental skills at the moment, and the main options between Flame Wall, Ice Nova, and Frost Bomb here, and so I'll explain each one, and we'll be picking Flame Wall as we go forward, and I'll explain why we're going to pick Flame Wall. So we have these two as the main option. We'll talk about Ice Nova a little bit later. So as you can see, Flame Wall has in the description, it will say that first of all, it ignites everything that walks through it or is in its area. And then any projectiles fired through the wall by you, so ally projectiles and other allies, will deal added fire damage, right? Now currently our main abilities are Firebolt and Sparks, both of which are projectiles. So we can use Flame Wall for its added bonus fire to our attacks and damages quite effectively. The other really beneficial skill that we have as an option is Frost Bomb. This creates a pulsing orb on a frost, and each pulse inflicts an elemental exposure on nearby enemies, right? When the durations end, it will detonate, dealing cold damage. But the problem is, this has a cooldown time of 6 seconds, whereas Flame Wall does not, right? So for general clearing, I think Flame Wall is a better option for us for now, and it works really well with Spark. Later down the line, once we pick up a new skill gem, we're going to pick up Frost Bomb to take advantage of the elemental exposure effect, which will reduce the elemental resistance on our enemies for us. So for now, let's go ahead with Flame Wall. And just as before, once we engrave our gem, we can go ahead and pick it up, slot it into our skill panel by pressing G, like so, and then we can click this and drag it onto our skill bar. So what I'm actually going to do is use Spark as my primary, and then select Flame Wall as my secondary. I'm just going to remove this from here for now, or replace it with Firebolt in case I run out of mana, right? Because both of these abilities here uses quite a bit of mana. So now, as you can see previously, our Spark is just a lightning projectile that flies randomly throughout the landscape here. But if I cast Flame Wall and then fire Spark, you'll see that the Spark is infused with, or it has added lightning fire damage to it. Great, so now with that knowledge equipped, let's go ahead and try to find our way and move through the Clearfell here. If I remember correctly, there should be an abandoned stash on the right side or left side of Clearfell. And this is guaranteed to always be here, even though Path of Exile 2's maps are procedurally generated. You will always find this abandoned stash in every playthrough. Once we open it, we get our second uncut skill gem. And so for this, I'm going to use Frost Bomb as mentioned before. Select it, put it into our skill bar, and attach a hotkey to that. We're going to use E for that. And then on the opposite side, we're looking for, in this area, the Ice Witch Beira, or Beira of the Rotten Pack, I believe is what she's called. You'll notice I killed these witches here. I don't remember their name exactly, so we'll go over and try to find more of them. But effectively, they are what I often categorize as summoner types mob. So if we kill all of the mobs around them, or their minions, and we don't kill them ourselves, they will continue resummoning the minions. So for that reason, I think whenever we approach one of those, it's always a good idea to try to attack her first. So for example here, if I kill off this minion, I'm struggling with it quite a bit. Right, and then let's try to kill off this one too. Perfect. So we need to get out of those red curse attack, and you see there she just summoned more minions. So whenever we face these, it's always a good idea to kill her first and then deal with her minions after, so that she cannot revive them. Same here. And once again, don't forget to use your Flask liberally throughout your gameplay. As I mentioned before, they automatically refill when we kill monsters, so it's not a big deal if we run out of them. And we always have the option of going back into town, right? My apologies, because I forgot to explain the Frostbomb infusion mechanics, but you can see there, when I place that down, it will pulse a couple of times and leaves behind a cold infusion. And if we look at the Spark skill description, there's a cold infuse tab here, right? And if we have cold infusion and fire out sparks, you'll see that our sparks now has also cold damage attached to them. There you go. So whenever we're fighting a difficult rare monster or a boss, that's sort of the combo that we want to do, right? Place down the Frost Bomb on top of them so that they lose elemental resistance, and pick up the Cold Infusion, Flame Wall, and then cast Sparks out so that our Spark now has all 3 types of elemental damage, right? That's the combo that we're looking for there. Okay, so we're approaching Beira here. She does cold damage, and there's a couple of attacks that we have to watch out for, but she shouldn't be too big of a problem. So, alright, so there she goes, shooting a barrage of projectiles, and anytime she winds up around her like that, she's going to shoot out an arc of projectiles, right? So, even though we are a ranged character, as you can see here, I'm having an easier time dodging her attack if I just stay closer to her. That's because the turn radius when we're closer to her is much smaller compared to when we're much further out. See, I have to cover a lot more distance in order to get away from her projectiles. So for boss fights, now that we have Frost Bomb, we could put down the Frost Bomb like this, Flame Wall on top of her, and then throw out our Spark. This will ensure that... oop, I just took damage. Oh no. That we do the maximum amount of damage. And the other thing that I also forgot to explain about Frost Bomb is that they leave behind a Cold Infusion. So you'll see here our Spark is infused with cold damage as well whenever we walk over a Frost Bomb that has expired. What? There we go, beautiful. So as the reward for taking down Beira, we get Head of the Winter Wolf. It's a quest item, and if we right click this, we will get 10% of cold resistance, right? So we'll just go ahead and right click that. Perfect, we receive 10% cold resist. Pick up the remaining of the loot. And I think we're gonna head back to town at this point. Alright, so join me in the next episode. I think we'll call it, end for this one here. We'll head into the Mud Burrow and seek out the Devourer in the next episode. At the end of that quest, we'll receive an uncut support gem. And I'll explain how support gems work and how they can massively boost your damage. So that's where we're going to wrap up this episode of the Exile Survival Guide. Hopefully you've learned a few things about item rarity, gears, stats, Flask mechanics, and the Flame Wall synergy and Frost Bomb with Spark. And we are ready to continue our next episode, in which we'll tackle the Mud Barrow and unlock the power of support gems. Thank you so much for watching this episode. My name has been Dewey. Don't forget to leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe if you want to see more. And I'll see you all soon. Take care, and bye for now.